Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Stargirl Season 3 review series. And today I am going to be talking about Episode 9, Frenemies Chapter 9, The Monsters, which I have just finished watching, and I'm going to make a big bold statement right here, right now. This episode was by far the best one of the entire third season, period. I absolutely loved this episode. It was absolutely fantastic from start to finish, and I would definitely put this episode up there with season two's episode 6, chapter 6, Summer School, where the JSA battled the new ISA in Blue Valley High, with all of the heroes and villains all going at it in the school canteen and in the school toilets as well. I just thought that episode was absolutely incredible. And this episode, episode 9, Frenemies Chapter 9, The Monsters, I would definitely put this episode up there with that one, because this episode, in terms of storytelling, emotion, action, there was plenty of action. This episode had it all and more. And what more can you say, really? I thought, this was just absolutely fantastic. In fact, I would actually go out and say this entire season has been incredible, but this episode in particular just blew everything that came before right out of the water, and this was my all-time favourite. I just thought this was absolutely incredible, and it's very interesting to see how things are going to play out in the next few episodes, because in this episode we've kind of got an idea of who might have killed the gambler, although they haven't actually confirmed it yet. We've got a rough idea of who it could be, and we got a huge reveal at the end of this episode, and it's a classic DC villain, and it's someone who we've never actually seen in live action before, not at all, and he's one of the big heavy hitters, and this surprise really made my jaw drop, because this DC villain I did not expect to see at all, and I definitely didn't see this one coming, which I'll get into in a moment. But overall, I thought this was an amazing episode. So I'm going to give a quick recap of what's happened so far, and then we're going to get straight into talking about this epic episode. So, as we saw in the last episode, we saw Pat and the Shade reluctantly work together to escape the Shadowlands, and we also saw Jenny and her brother Todd reunite, and we also got a bit more of the backstory of Mr. Bones and why he's been doing what he's been doing. And as we saw at the end of episode 8, we saw the Shade take Jenny and Todd under his wing to try and help them control and understand their powers better. And they also mentioned that they were going to look for an old JSA member named Sandy Hawkins, aka the Sandman. And we saw Courtney and Pat take a bus back to Blue Valley. And at the very end of episode 8, the last few seconds, we learn now that it wasn't Mr. Bones and Love who have been monitoring everybody in Blue Valley. We saw a figure wearing a hooded robe punch one of the camera screens, which ironically enough had a picture of Rick. So it looks like the person who has been spying on everyone is still out there. So it's going to be very interesting to see who that person actually is. But we left that episode on kind of a bit of a cliffhanger, and this is going to go straight into episode 9. So, with that all said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 9, Frenemies Chapter 9, The Monsters. This episode opens up with Courtney and Pat returning home, and we see them reunite with Barbara, who has been worried sick about them since they disappeared when the Shade summoned them. And since the Shade has left with Jenny and Todd, they were forced to take the bus home back to Blue Valley. And as we saw at the end of episode 8, Pat saw in the Shadowland that Mike is not happy with him for whisking him away from his mum and telling him to get over it. He feels shunned by the family, something we have witnessed time and time again, and now Pat has decided he has to come face to face with that. We see Pat admits to Barbara that he saw his father in the Shadowland and that he said the same horrible things he would say to him in person before he died. The thing is that wasn't what got to Pat. He's worried that he is following in his dad's footsteps and making Mike feel like he isn't good enough. Pat then dives into the story about him and Mike's mother, one that we haven't completely heard before. He explains to Barbara that he didn't know about Mike until after they broke up. When he found out, he was thrilled and knew that nothing would stop him from being in Mike's life. Eventually, Mike's mother just walked away from him, leaving him in the shelter and then getting arrested for possession. Pat admits that when Mike would ask to talk to his mother, he would always say no until Mike stopped asking. Barbara says that maybe Mike needs to learn for himself and should speak to his mother. It's very interesting, actually, because we've yet to see her in the show, so maybe it's a possibility we could see an appearance from her. We also see Courtney is greeted by Yolanda, who, as we all remember, got kicked out of her family home, and she decided to move in with the Whitmores. We see Courtney and Yolanda reunite and embrace each other and telling each other how sorry they are for the way they treated one another. We also see that things have not been great between the two girls, but they instantly start to break the ice and rekindle their friendship. We see at school Courtney goes to the rest of the JSA and apologizes for her actions. And as we saw in the scene earlier, Courtney tells Yolanda that it's time to tell Cameron the truth about what really happened to his dad, and I need your support, which of course Yolanda agrees to support her. The rest of the team forgive her, and she pushes things a little bit further by asking their permission to tell Cameron that she is Stargirl, which in turn would expose all of their secret identities. The team is not exactly thrilled with it, but they understand and respect Courtney's decision. Rick in particular is unhappy that she wants to tell him because he does not think they can trust Cameron. He says he will always have their backs because he looks at them as family, but tells Courtney that don't say I didn't tell you so when Cameron eventually crosses them. Things get quite tense at Cameron's house. His grandparents have been shown more and more of their evil side, particularly his grandmother. When Cameron's art teacher comes to the house to let them know he is concerned about him because he quits art, which he seemed to love, Cameron's grandmother snaps and straight up kills him with her icicle powers. When Courtney comes to the house to tell Cameron about his father and her superhero identity, his grandparents interrupt them. The JSA was waiting outside in case things went wrong, and Rick uses his super strength to break in, which just makes Cameron's grandparents even more angry. They attack, and the JSA ends up in a fight with the Macents. Thought this fight scene was absolutely fantastic. You know, the way everybody was just going at it, and Rick and Cameron going at it as well. You know, has been a long time coming because these two have been at each other's throats for quite some time, and these two didn't disappoint at all. And plus, you know, with Rick having full unlimited power of the Owlman power, you know, it was bound to explode eventually. And everything about it was just amazing, you know. It's not quite how I expected it to go, but I think overall, I think it worked out really, really well. We then see Cameron's grandfather step in to stop Cameron, telling him not to let his anger and grief take control of him like his father did. He then has a heart attack, but Beth is able to save him. Wow, really, really powerful stuff here going on. We then see towards the end, we see Kim and Mike, who are still trying to find the gambler's killer. They ride their bikes up to an old farmhouse that has a dead body inside. Although they don't notice it, they head to the barn and they are chased by a giant white gorilla who says that he plans to kill every last one of them. And the big reveal is it's none other then classic DC villain, the Ultra Humanite. And we see him make his first official live action appearance. And that's how we end episode 9. As I said, this was absolutely fantastic. The best episode of season 3, period. And the reveal of Ultra Humanite at the end, one that I didn't expect to see. Definitely didn't see this one coming. And, what a treat to see Ultra Humanite in live action. It's not really someone I was yearning to see, but at the same time, it's not something I wouldn't have said no to, because we've kind of already seen like a live action gorilla with Grodd in the Flash series. So getting Ultra Humanite, I thought, made a lot of sense. So it's great to see him. I'm really curious to see what kind of role he's going to play for the rest of season 3. Now, we don't actually know if the Ultra Humanite is the one who killed the gambler, but it's starting to point fingers towards him that it could be Ultra Humanite. But time will tell, really. But as I said, this was absolutely fantastic. I thought this was by far the best episode of season 3. So that's going to be it for me. I am going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on episode 9? Did you enjoy it? Were you pleased to see Courtney and Yolanda reunite? And so also, what was your thoughts on Courtney's decision to tell Cameron the truth about her secret identity and all of the JSA's secret identities, as well as the kind of person that Cameron's dad, Dr. Icicle, really was? Do you think she's making the right decision, or do you think she's going about it wrong? And also, what was your thoughts on Ultra Humanite making his live action debut? Do you think he is the killer? Do you think he is the one who killed the gambler? Or do you think he's working with someone else behind the scenes? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Stargirl Season 3 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 10, which I am very much looking forward to seeing and talking about, especially with the way this one ended. It's going to be a good one, and I'm really pumped to see what happens next. So until next time, take care everybody and stay safe, and once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.